Hello and welcome to another C# coding homework exercise for Windows Forms. In this one we are going to create a pet class. So we are to create a class named pet which has the following properties: name, type and age. Now the name is obviously the name of the pet, type is something like dog, cat or bird, and age is how old the pet is, obviously. We are to demonstrate the class in an application that creates an object of the class and lets the user enter the name, type and age of his or her pet. This data should be stored in the object. We are to retrieve the pet's name, type and age properties and display their values on the screen. So I already have the form where the user enters the pet's name, type and age, and then we'll click enter pet data, which basically will create the object, and then we can click display pet data and it will display the name, type and age in our list box. Alright, so the first thing, let's create a class. So I'm going to right click, add new class, and I call it pet. So this is my class, and they want just the name, type and age, and so let's create the properties first. So we can just do automatic properties. So it's gonna be string for the name, the next one is string for the type of the pet, so it's type, and the last one is age. It could be an integer, but for smaller pets, you know, people sometimes would say, like, I have a fish for a year and a half or something. So let's make it decimal, so we can type age that is not just an integer value. So this is our pet class for the properties. Now to create an object, we can use the constructor. So it's public pet, and the constructor obviously asks for the name, type, it's gonna be again string, so type, and for the age. And this is going to be basically from the input from the user. So in our constructor we can assign those values to our properties. So our name property will equal the name that is supplied by the user, type will equal the type from the text box that the user enters the data in, and finally the age obviously equals the age. And this is really all that we need for our class. So now we can go to our form, and in our button we have two buttons, one to enter the data and one to display the data. So we're going to be using the pet object, so I'm going to create a pet variable of the type pet. I'll just call it lowercase pet, and that's the form level because we'll be using it in both of these click events. So when we enter the data, we'll simply ask for the input and then process the input into an object. So the input will be the string, and this is going to be the name, and it comes from the text box that I just named txt name. I have three text box: age, name and type, and that's the text. This is a string. Another one which is a string is the type, so this is gonna be txt type that text, and the last one is a decimal, and since it's a decimal, we cannot just assign it the value from the text box. We should verify that it is indeed a decimal, that the user didn't enter invalid letters and only numbers. So I'll declare the decimal of age and initialize it to 0, 0.0 since it's a decimal with an M, and now I will do try parse to make sure that the input is correct. And I will also make sure that the user entered name and type, that it's not just blank. So I'm going to do if statement, and if it is not, for the name, if it is not string dot is null or white space, so in other words, if there's some kind of characters there, then it's okay for the name. It's gonna be the same for the other string. So if not string, and this is null or white space for the type. So if these two inputs are correct, and if the user entered decimal, so if the decimal dot try parse, and we are parsing the txt age dot text, and if everything's okay, we'll get out our h variable, which is the decimal. So this is our input verification. So if something's wrong, we can just display an else and do a message box that show something like please correct your input, because this is obviously an invalid input. So if the input is valid, we can now create a pet object. So our pet will equal the new object of pet, and will pass the input from the user. So it expects the name, type, and age. So we will pass the name, type, and age. So that's for our button click for the enter. It creates the object of pet. Now we can display it. So in our display button click event, we have to make sure that there's something to display. That if the user clicks the display data button before the user actually creates a pet object, then we'll get an error. So I'm going to put everything into a try catch, and I'm going to have two catches. The first one is going to be null reference exception. That's when the user clicks the display data button before there is any pet object created. So when that happens, we can display a message box that show, and we can display something like please enter the pet data first. Now the next catch, or basically like a default catch, if there's something unexpected, we'll just catch it an exception, ex, and we'll display the message box with that message for the exception. So message box.show, and we'll do the ex.message. So we don't know what error that could be, so we'll simply let the system decide and explain the error to the user. But this one, the null reference exception, that would be if the user clicks the display data first before the user clicks the enter data button. So, and what are we going to try? Well, we're going to try to add the name to our list box. So the name, type, and age, I mean. So lst output, that's my list box, items.add, and I can do pets name and simply do pet.name. The next one, lst output.items.add, and that would be the type, so pets type, and obviously we'll add the pet object.type property. And last one would be the age, so lst output.items.age, .add, and that's the pet's age, and we'll add the age, so pet.age. And this is our little program. I think that's all this exercise asked for, so let's run it and see what we get. So here is our form. Let's do the first name. So my dog is Pedro, It's a little chihuahua, but it's a dog. So pet type is dog, and pet age, I'm not sure, but let's say 7. So I click enter, pet data. So nothing happened, but what happened in the background is that the pet object was created over here. So now when I click display pet data, I got pet's name Pedro, pet's type dog, and age 7. Now if I run it, and let's say I try to display the pet's data before I enter any, I get the please enter pet data first. Now if I try, let's say I leave this one blank, and I'll do dog and age 8, it says, hey, please correct your input, because this one's blank. So if I type something, but let's say I type pet age wrong, which is invalid input, again it says please correct your input. So if I do everything okay, it enters it, and then I can display it. Alright, so this is our little class of pets. This is how you get it from the user input from the text boxes. Fairly simple, and I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.